To part 2 of Competency 9. In this video, we will answer questions relating to tangent and cotangent. Continue to work with the same basic properties of trigonometric functions. However, we will also add secant and cosecant. Number 1. If tangent theta equals tangent 36 degrees, what is the value of theta? Okay, this is a simple case as the other videos, as the same thing that we did. However, look at our Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4. Oh, Q3 needs to be changed there. Okay. Oh, that's better. All right. Okay. We have our quadrants, and it looks like for tangent to be negative, we will either be in Q2 or Q5. So this means that we are either going to have 360 minus the 36, or we will have 180 minus the 36. Okay, so let's just put that in our calculator, right? 360 minus the 36, that is 324. Do we have, and we don't have 324 as an option. So it's probably the other one. The other value, let's see, 324 degrees, not present. He's the MIA. So let's do 180 minus the 36. 144, option B is present. Okay. All right. That's basically all you need to do. Now, as we did in the other videos, you can show that these are all equivalent. Okay. So let's do that. Let's say tangent 324. Okay. And press enter. And then tangent, and we want 144, close parentheses, and they're the same answer. So either one would have worked. And we can also put in, I want negative tangent 36 degrees. Let's see what happens. And there we go. All three equivalent. So we've done it correctly. All right, now we're doing the same thing for number 2. If tangent theta equals tangent 222 degrees, and theta cannot equal 220, what is the value of theta? Okay, here's the thing. We know tangent needs to be positive. That can only be in Q1 and Q3. But we can't use Q3. They say you can't have that one. So what do? Well, we take the 220, subtract 180. So it will be directly 180 degrees opposite coordinate. It's very convenient. So if we take 220 and subtract the 180, 42 degrees. And that's actually correct. See, because, you may say, well, no, I don't buy that. Let me explain. All right, let's grab another color here. Okay. So what we're doing is we're measuring from the 180. So when we subtract 180, we end up measuring this way, okay? So it is 42 degrees. So I do agree that it's option D, okay? All right, let's go to number 3. Okay. Now, okay, this is not as bad as maybe it looks. Well, we know a lot about this. We know that this is a hypotenuse, okay? And this is going to be a negative x value, all right? And if you remember from what we showed you earlier, we have tangent theta is equal to, okay, that will have to be tangent is the y over the x. Well, this is our y here. Okay, and that's going to be equal to 20. Okay, if I could write it to where you can read it. Okay, this would be, I'll do it like this. That's technically our y. Now, I do need you to make note um, that, I don't know how much it'll help us, but that actually, if we have 5 over 7, this would be 4 times your 5. It's regardless. We know that tangent is going to be the y over the x, which is the uh, the opposite over adjacent, because cosine is adjacent over opposite. I like to put it in terms of x and y. It's more convenient for me. And in our situation, we have the negative. So we know the y is associated with a 5 and the x is associated with a 7. Okay? All right. So now let's go to the values we have. Okay. And we also know that there's a negative hanging on out here. Okay. Let me write that a little bit clearer. Okay. Delayed reaction there. Okay. So if 5 is related to the x, I bring the negative out in front, and then the 7 is related to the 20. So what do we really have here? Okay, I paused a moment because I realized I was incorrect. Oh my goodness. Okay, let's see here. Y is our 20, and X goes with our 7. That looks better. I can believe that now. I looked at what I wrote and I said, I don't buy it. That's incorrect. And you probably saw what I was doing and said, that isn't right. And if you did see it, you were correct. Okay, so what do we really have? We have a negative hanging on here. I'll go ahead and say negative 5x equals, okay, uh, negative 140. Divide both sides by the negative 5, okay? So this is going to give us, of course, this cancels, and this is what we can put into our calculator, okay? And even though this answer comes out positive, we know that we're going the negative direction. So really what we're trying to find is the value of x, okay, which we have. And then we know we have a negative that we need to pop in front of it, okay? All right, so 140, divide that by the 5, and that's 28. So the x value is 28, but regardless, for our distance, we're going the negative direction. So this will equal negative 28. Okay. So let's look at which options. Now, if you were already looking at your ABCD options, you can see some things that just aren't right. Well, these negative 20s here, no. Okay, this one right here, no. Okay, and then it says that you have a X value of positive. They're trying to see if you make the mistake of not uh, acknowledging the negative direction. So that's not correct. Now, 8 is obviously not our value, although the negative is correct. So D will be correct. Okay. All right. Let's move on to number 4. Okay. Number 4. Use the diagram below. If the x-coordinate of r is negative 12, what is the value of tangent theta? Okay, so what we have here is negative 12. Okay, well, we see some pretty obvious things going on here. Okay, first, we need to deal with what is the tangent. Okay, so tangent of theta equals the y. Well, we don't have the y. It will be the y over minus 12. Okay? All right. So what we need to do first is, oh, I can see some things that need to happen, but neither way, this is what we need to do. We need to get our y. Obviously, we need our y, and then we can get the value. Whatever y is going to help us out. Okay. And I see some over on our ABCD option, I see some things under the square root. Okay. So getting a decimal in our calculator will only be mildly helpful. So let's deal with this. Y equals under the square root. Okay, that'll give us 18 squared minus negative 12 squared. Okay, now that is going to give us, let's take a look at what it gives us, okay? I want just the value under the square root. I don't want to put it all under the square root because as I just stated, getting the decimal will be mildly helpful, but not too helpful, okay? But this value underneath will be very helpful, okay? So 18 squared minus, well, I'll go ahead and put in the negative 12. We know that a negative times a negative is a positive, so that would be 144. Doesn't matter. That gives us 180, okay? But we need to factor out the repetitive values so we can pull them from underneath the square root. Well, what do? Well, we use a little trick that we used in the last video. I can make this look better. Okay. So we need to use our little trick so we know what to pull out so we can get a final answer here. So let's see what our factors are. So we need to go to y equals, and see I had it set up from the last video. Well, let's just put in the 180. Okay. Now, I'll push enter for good sake. Okay. Now, second graph. So we need whole numbers. And looks like to me they're going to be smaller. I'm looking at 2s and 5s in our ABCD option. So what do? We just go back to second window, and I'm going to put in number 2. And we want whole numbers. Even though it's going to pop in decimals, we want those whole numbers because it's going to help us make our choices. Okay, so second graph. All right, 2 is 90. Oh, look at 5. That is 5 times 36. So this tells me that 6 times 6 times 5 will give me 180. And that allows me to pull out the 6 and leave the 5 under the square root. And we know if we go over here that this will actually equal a negative. Oh, okay. Someday I will get better at this. Okay, that will give me minus 6 square roots of 5 equals the x, okay? So we know it needs to be negative. Well, that only sort of helps me. So what I do now is I go back and I finish filling this in. Okay, I know my y. So I know that that is, uh, actually, I don't need the negative. Oh, it'll be positive. That'll help me out. Look, over here, we see in this quadrant, see, this is Q3. We see that this is O, and that is incorrect. I'm sorry, that says Q. That's bothering me. Ignore here, let me erase that. This was a boo-boo I had in there earlier. That's actually Q3. I guess I carried my mistake just right on over. Well, it shows that I'm not perfect. There you go. Okay, and I can go back. Let me go back to my blue. Okay, so that means that we will have a positive. So that will be 6 square roots of 5 over the minus 12. Well, minus 12 is 6 times 2. And this implies what? That this is canceled. So we have 5 square roots of 2. So that's option C, which is correct. Okay. So the minute we saw that our Q3 was positive, we needed to get rid of our A and our D. Okay. And then just deal with our square root issues. Okay. All right. So let's go to number 5. Okay. All right. This one says if secant theta equals 9 over 2, what is the value of cosine theta? Okay, guys, here's the dealio. Okay, cosine, if you remember, we can use green for a while. Cosine of theta equals 1 over secant theta. This question is a dead giveaway, okay? And then for us, that means it equals 1 over 9 over 2. And I'm sure that you see that that's just going to be the reciprocal, which is C. Don't stress yourself out. We see what it is. Okay. Just verify it in your calculator real quick. As I've said, sorry about that. Now I have to back out again. Okay. As I've said so many times, put things in your calculator. Don't try to do everything in your head. Double check because you're taking a test and you will become very tired. Okay, I had to use parentheses to show it to myself. Okay, I pushed equal. Well, that becomes a decimal. You can say math, enter again, 2 over 9. Oh, I picked the wrong one. Oh my goodness. See what I mean? You get tired. And you may have seen that too. That's not the reciprocal of 9 over 2. Ah, okay. It is 2 over 9. I said reciprocal, but I didn't pick the reciprocal. Mistakes are made, and obviously I make them too. It just goes to show always double check it. And then you could also have done it like this. Let's try it like this. Let's do, uh, let me see here. We can do it. It's a little dicey, but let's try it out here. Alpha window, arrow over to the number 1. Okay. All right. I'm going to put a 1 in. Then I'll go down and I'll repeat my process. Alpha window, arrow over to number 1. Okay. There we go. Now put in 9, go down, put in your 2. Okay. I'm going to arrow over. I don't have to, but let's push enter just to see what happens. It actually gives it to us right away, 2 over 9. Okay. All right. Let's go to number 6. If cosecant theta equals negative cosecant 65 degrees, what is the value of theta? Okay. Cosecant is equal to 1 over sine theta. Okay. So you should remember that cosecant of theta equals 1 over sine theta, okay, which gives us, okay, that is going to give us 1 over y over the hypotenuse. In the end, this gives us the hypotenuse over the y. All right, that's just something that you need to remember. But here's the big thing. We have got a negative hanging out over here. And when would we have anything related to sine? Because it's 1 over sine. So we're looking at the value of sine. Okay. Let's see here. Let's do our quadrants. And so sine is positive here, and negative here. So this means we have two options. We either have 180 plus the 65, or we have the 360 minus the 65. So we just put those in the calculator and see which one we have. Okay. So what am I saying? I'm saying that if you're like, why is it sometimes you subtract and sometimes you add? Well, you have to look at your major axis that we're using. So we're using this. Okay. So over here, we need to go down. That means that we're subtracting our angle. Okay. And over here, we have to go down, which means we are adding the angle. We're going backwards. If we're here, our degrees are quote unquote going backwards. So we are actually subtracting from our rotation of 360. If we're over here, we're adding on because we have fully rotated. So we're past the 180 and adding on that degree of 65. Okay. All right. That being said, let's do this. 180 plus a 65. Well, that's 245, and 245 is not present. So we can't use it. Okay. So obviously, it'll have to be the 360 minus the 65, which gives us 295. Option C. Perfect. Okay. Yes. All right. Let's go to number 7. Okay. All right. So it says use the diagram, and remember that this would be 13 is positive, but we're going the negative direction for that x. Okay. So we have to make note of that. So if cotangent equals minus 2 over 3, what is okay, looks like I have a little something in the way. Not sure where that came from. What are the coordinates of point P? Okay, well, we know that, and I haven't done this before, but let's make note of it because you should have noticed it going on. We notice that whatever x is, it has to be negative, and whatever y value is, it must be a plus 13. So let's go down here to our ABCD options. B and C are out. I don't believe them. And let's look at Captain Obvious. Uh, D is okay, and A, I'm going to say it's not going to work. But let's prove this to ourselves, okay? We know that they're asking what is the point. We know that cotangent is actually tangent. Okay, let's do this. Cotangent of theta actually equals 1 over tangent theta. Okay, and that means that we have x over y because we really have 1 over y over x. Okay, so that means we end up with a reciprocal, all right? And that reciprocal just so happens to equal, okay, that would be, I'm going to put the -2 associated with the 3, okay, which gives us, okay, the -2 is associated with the x, and the 13 is associated with the 3. And that is absolutely 100% correct. Okay. All right. Notice that I didn't put the negative here on the x because if I don't, remember, we're really just looking for the value of x. We're really not looking for that negative. It's just something that you always have to make note of. Okay. So let's get this done. This gives us 3x equals negative 26. Divide both sides by the 3. This cancels. So I know this is what I put in the calculator. And what does that give us? So 26 divided by 3. Oh, well, I can tell you now that that's 8, negative 8 and 2/3. Well, let's double check. Let's go math, and it's highlighted on what we want. Enter, enter. Okay, well, it tells us that we have a 3 in the denominator. Well, how can we remedy this? Alpha, window, arrow over, that's the number 3. Remember, if you've watched other videos with me, I pushed the wrong thing. So let's make sure we are pushing 3. Okay, enter, and there it is. Of course, without the negative, because we didn't put in the negative. Okay, all right. Now, let's make note of something particular. These are very simple. This whole video and the last video were simple concepts. You must remember that these will be embedded in more rigorous test questions. So don't think that, oh, I remember these, I'm good enough. The questioning will get more rigorous as we move along, and there will be word problems, and that's what you need to remember. Just tell yourself, if I don't have these basic things fully understood and where they come from, then I may have trouble later. So if you are struggling in any way, please look at the end of any of my videos. I do have some good reference suggestions, especially that YouTube channel. That's great. Pop it in and they'll give you what you need. And remember, notes over the basic trig identities. Get those things out, have them committed to memory. You will not get all of these things on your formula sheet when you take the test or practice test at the university. Okay, that's the end of this particular video. Guys, thank you for your subscriptions and all your likes and your shares. It is greatly appreciated. Happy testing.